Good morning on this Sunday, January 21st, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. The Fulton County judge in the 2020 election interference case sets a hearing to address allegations DA Fani Willis had an improper relationship with a prosecutor she appointed in the case. Also, after the Iowa caucuses, the AJC is out with a poll of voters that shows former President Trump with a solid lead over President Biden in Georgia. And Georgia's agriculture commissioner is asking the state delegation to freeze a wage hike for farm workers. Kathy and Phil are both here. Alicia Searcy is filling in for Theron. Brian Robinson is here filling in for Martha. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
The judge overseeing the Fulton County election interference case has set a date of February 15th for a hearing on allegations DA Fani Willis had an improper relationship with Nathan Wade, one of the prosecutors she appointed to help in the case. This week, we heard from Willis for the first time since these allegations came to light.
I hope for y'all this week I don't look like what I've been through.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is playing offense and defense. This comes as she continues to prosecute former President Donald Trump and his co-defendants for their alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election in Georgia. All while defending herself from new allegations she's involved romantically with Nathan Wade, one of the special prosecutors in the case. Willis spoke at Big Bethel AME Church during its Martin Luther King Jr. service. She spent some of her time defending Nathan Wade, though not mentioning him by name. Willis said the claims are racially motivated because of the three of them, Wade is the only African-American special prosecutor.
All three of these special counselors are superstars. But I'm just asking God, is it that some will never see a black man as qualified, no matter his achievements?
Last week, Michael Roman, one of former President Trump's co-defendants, filed a motion to throw out his case, claiming an inappropriate relationship Willis had with Wade before he was hired. The filing also alleges Wade received money from Fulton County and used some of it on vacations with Willis.
They're going on cruise lines. I told my wife I'd like to take you on a vacation like that, but I can't afford it. It's too expensive.
After Willis's claims, Roman's attorney Ashley Merchant released a statement writing in part, "If anybody doubts our claim that Wade is inexperienced, ask him how many RICO cases he has handled. Ask him how many felonies he has tried. This has nothing to do with the color of his skin." So let's run the table. Brian, Fani Willis never addressed the allegations nor directly denied them, and she was served a subpoena to testify in Wade's divorce proceedings. She wants that quashed.
Yes. You know, when she was charged, or there were allegations that she had an improper relationship with a gang member she was prosecuting, she very quickly came out and told her staff and told the public that wasn't true. Very different than what she has done in this particular case. Her silence on the actual allegations is deafening, and these are very serious allegations, and she really threatens to undermine the credibility of her case with what she was saying this is about racism. No, this is about a conflict of interest that would apply to you no matter what your skin color. And when it comes to the qualifications of Mr. Wade, I'm sure that he's a great lawyer. That wasn't the issue. The first lawyer hired by Fani Willis was an expert on RICO cases, a very niche part of the law profession. That is not what Mr. Wade has done through his career. So it's very fair to raise the question of qualifications. It has nothing to do with race, and to say that no African American can be considered qualified is so inflammatory that she's really going to lose the support of a lot of independent-minded voters in this state. And look, prosecution is separate from politics, but you must have public support for a prosecution that is at this level, and she is going to lose that support if she doesn't come up with some real answers real soon.
Alicia, I'm anxious to hear your thoughts, because what do you make of her defense that these are racially motivated attacks?
I'm not so sure I've come to that conclusion. I'm not in the minds of Ms. Merchant or any of these others that are filing these claims, but I do think that obviously in a legal case you want to find out who's on the other side. And so you've got Anna Green, who is a well-known appellate attorney. She's got a tremendous reputation. You've got John Floyd, who is the RICO expert on the team. And so I'm not a lawyer, but I'm imagining that when you're putting together a team, you want to have a number of different expertise. And so I don't have a question about why they wanted to investigate who this guy is if people don't know who he is. Here's my issue. I understand that this does not look good. I'm a former public official. I understand that we're held to a different standard and how things look matters. I also believe that when you are responsible for arguably the biggest criminal case in our lifetime, that you've got to cross every T and dot every I. And so I'm disappointed that this has even come up as a distraction. But I do believe this is a distraction. This has nothing to do with the merits of the case, the criminal acts that Donald Trump and his co-conspirators have committed. They've come together to try to overturn an election over multiple states, and they have to be held responsible for that. It's unfortunate that we have this distraction. I don't know if this is a racial issue on their side, but I do know that I want to get back to the fact that this is a man who's tried to overturn our election, undermine our democracy, and he has to be held accountable for it.
Phil, from Democrats we hear this is a distraction. From Republicans we hear that these are serious allegations.
Well, I think that they're both. There are distractions. They are serious. And I've talked to Democrat and Republican attorneys who say that, look, you had Ashley Merchant, who is the lawyer for one of the Trump case co-defendants, actually see the unsealed divorce papers, and then they were sealed, and so that was the basis of how all these allegations came about. And I'll go to the point, Lori, that you and Brian made. I thought it was very damning that there was no statement whatsoever that the day or two, and even to this moment, that she hasn't said anything or denied anything. And I know Judge Scott McAuliffe, the Superior Court judge that's handling this case, was irritated when he asked the prosecutorial, it was a week ago, asked the prosecutorial team before him and said, "Do you have a statement now?" And they sheepishly said no. Now, what does that tell you? There ought to be some type of statement. And so I think the fact that you've got a hearing coming up, an evidentiary hearing, that'll tell the story. It'll tell the story if we can get the divorce papers unsealed. And there's serious, it's been listed. There are state laws, there are federal laws that could be violated here. And so I think we'll know more when we see these hearings happen.
Kathy, does this undermine the credibility, as Phil or Brian had mentioned, the credibility of the entire case? And could there be criminal implications?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to hear more about what one thinks the criminal implications are, because I don't think there are any. I think there is a conflict of interest here. I think it's an unforced error. I'm disappointed, like my colleague here, Alicia said.
If it is true.
If it is true. What I do want to make sure we're really aware of is that Michael Roman, who is the defendant that is represented by Ashley Merchant, is an opposition researcher. He was in President Trump's administration in a title that was special projects. I think it was a bit of a hitman, in my opinion, in terms of kind of taking on issues, and he's using his profession to advance his case in the court of public opinion. When we get into actual trying the case, I think we're going to see something different, but I do agree that our DA really needs to really look closely at the operations of the office and make sure that everything is the way she wants to have it to be successful.
Alicia?
Yeah, just one more thing. I think it is important to note, Ashley Merchant, I think, was asking, has Mr. Wade ever tried a RICO case? I don't know if anybody's ever tried a RICO case with a former president. And so this level of expertise, I think, is very unique. But I do think that he's proven so far, given that they've gotten the indictment, every motion that they filed in front of a judge, they've won so far. And so I think he's demonstrated that he's not only qualified, but also very capable. So again, let's separate these personal issues. I hope that it's not true. Even if it is, I don't think anything illegal has happened. Let's not be distracted and focus on the merits of the case.
Phil and then Brian.
Let me just do a quick footnote here. There's the use of taxpayer money, and the abuse of taxpayers' money can be a crime. And also the oath of office that the DA takes said, "You shall not take any unjust compensation." And so you asked for some laws that could be broken. There's one.
Yeah, I want to point out that the New York Post reported this week a really scintillating detail that Nathan
You seem
Wade.
to be very entertained by this.
Well, I mean, this is like some of the most fun topics we've had, and a really boring case for some time.
And I will say, I have covered many a Republican, white men who have had their share of affairs, sleeping with people that they shouldn't have.
Yes, this is not new.
That's right. But Nathan Wade, in a Cobb County case, once took on the judge there, saying if you have just a shred of a conflict of interest, you should recuse yourself. Even went after the appointment of that judge because the judge had been appointed by the governor, and the judge's wife worked for that governor. This is hypocrisy on its face in addition to a conflict of interest.
Phil, let me ask you one last question. We've got 30 seconds, but Steve Sadow, President Trump's attorney, former President Trump's attorney, he's kind of sat back and he's just waiting to see like what's going to happen with these motions and all of that. What do you expect from him? Do you expect him to join in this motion?
I think he will. As I said, you're going to get the divorce papers unsealed, and that's what Ashley Merchant has said. You know, this is the basis of these serious allegations. But I think Steve Sadow, the Trump attorneys, obviously feel that it's tainted already. You know, the DA campaigned that I'm going to get Trump, and it's very political. She got slapped already for going after Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, and he was removed from the case. I wouldn't be surprised if Judge McAuliffe says, you know what, the whole DA's office has to be removed from this.
Colossal error in judgment.
All right, well, if it's true.
If true,
yes,
absolutely.
Have to caveat that. All right, coming up, a new poll out by the AJC shows former President Donald Trump with a commanding lead among Georgia voters.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
A new AJC poll out this week of registered voters here in Georgia shows former President Trump ahead of President Biden, 45 to 37%. So let's talk about those numbers first. Phil, it's looking like another matchup between these two. The key, of course, here in Georgia will be these independent voters. Do you think that they're going to come back around for former President Trump like they did not in 2020?
I think right now all of the pollsters of all stripes are saying that the independents, the moderates, the swing voters are over on the Trump side. Why? Because the old classic question in elections, presidential elections, is are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And that's a question that's asked a lot, and people are saying no in the middle, let alone the conservative side of the spectrum. And you've had all of these issues from inflation. There's still core inflation. There's still high mortgage rates. There's still high grocery prices and energy. So that's the unpopularity, and the poll showed that. It was, 45 to 37%. And other states, the swing states, are saying the same thing. He's in serious trouble when it comes to getting 270 votes in the Electoral College.
Alicia, you and, of course, other Democrats just extremely critical of the former president. Are you surprised by these numbers?
I'm not, because that's what the polls keep telling us. It's baffling to me. I think not just Democrats, but there are independents and even Republicans who are willing to openly say that they are critical of this ex-president and don't want him in office. I think that it is concerning to me when you see a number of voters who are saying they're probably not going to vote at all because they're not excited about either candidate. Truth be told, I'm not doing backflips for President Biden either, but I know that he needs to be president because I want to protect our democracy. I know he needs to be president because I want to make sure that we're protected from foreign enemies, and the list goes on. I think we all want him to continue to be president because Georgia's benefited greatly from some of his economic policies, particularly around electronic vehicles and all of that. And so I am concerned that the poll numbers are not changing, but I would like to believe that as it gets closer, more indictments come, maybe more convictions come, that the independents will save us.
Well, Brian, let's drill down to some of the other numbers that perhaps show that, like Alicia, maybe some folks are a little bit hesitant to choose between the two. Some 6% of voters are undecided, 6% say they won't vote, and 7% will vote for a third-party candidate.
They won't really vote for a third-party candidate. That's not true. And in Georgia, RFK, who's getting some buzz, probably won't be able to get on the ballot. We have a really high bar to get over to get on the ballot here. Biden's overall problem here is these numbers that we're seeing in Georgia, a state he really, really needs to win to get re-election, are consistent, as Alicia said. We saw back in the fall, the New York Times, no mouthpiece for Georgia Republicans, showing a similar lead for President Trump here. It's being driven by the fact that voters feel like they're not as well off as they were. They still feel crunched by inflation. What really should concern Biden, though, is that he's losing just as bad in states he won by much bigger margins, like Michigan and Pennsylvania. So even if the numbers begin to move in Georgia, and they will to some degree, like some of these polls show Biden getting Trump getting nearly 20% of the black vote. That will not happen, right? There's a chance that people will feel better about the economy over the next year. This is going to crunch here in Georgia. Here's the one thing that's not going to change, and it's a major problem for Joe Biden. He can't get younger. The economy can change, his age can't, and the border crisis has no hope of getting fixed, and that could really be the death knell for his campaign.
Kathy, Brian mentions, we always say polls are a snapshot in time. It's a long way to go before November. What does the Biden campaign have to do here in Georgia?
Well, they got to tell a better story, right? They've got to be really, really clear about their accomplishments. I think they are many. I think, to Brian's point, I think, as we kind of let this year play out economically, I think things are going to improve just because of the actions of the Fed and the trends that we're seeing. I also think people have to remember Georgia is a much more moderate state than our political lineup tends to say, but part of that's due to gerrymandering. Part of it is just the nature of Georgians. So I think when we get to September, if we see these numbers, we're going to have a much more worrying conversation. But I think we have a long way to go. I think Biden's going to do a lot better. But to everyone's point here, it would be great if we saw numbers that reflected that a little bit more. And I think, as we watch Trump sort of play out all year, as we see how Nikki Haley does, the conversation is going to be different because people are going to see different opportunities, and they're going to see a bombastic ex-president that continues to offend everyone who even makes eye contact. So I'm looking forward to the change.
We're going to move on. Governor Brian Kemp on the global stage for the second year in a row at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Phil, what do you make of his appearance there again and his message? I mean, he was touting Georgia's 2 nuclear reactors. I
get a kick out of it. At Davos, they're letting in people that aren't globalists and internationalists and lovers of the UN and not nationalists. So they let in the president of Argentina along with Governor Kemp, and the president of Argentina just insulted him and promoted capitalism and attacked socialism. I think Brian Kemp said it best, though. Our governor said, this is a one-stop shop for me to meet folks that can invest in Georgia. And so he held, rightly so, some private receptions with some select business people that were interested in Georgia. Our Economic Development Commissioner, Pat Wilson, was right there with his pitches. And so obviously Brian Kemp doesn't agree with this one world socialist, globalist UN John Kerry agenda. So,
Kathy, the governor said that he used the time to really sell Georgia.
Yeah, he probably used the time to do a little skiing on the side too, but that's another story. I think Davos is a great place for, for a governor to be, for any kind of leader that wants to, kind of be on the global stage and also, make important contacts. So I think it's good that he's there. I'm not sure I would have led with the nuclear reactors, but that's another conversation for another day. But hopefully he'll bring a little business home, and the goggle suntan from the skiing won't show up too much.
I don't think so. We'll see. Coming up, Georgia's agriculture commissioner says a wage hike for farm workers could be the final nail in the coffin for several Georgia farmers. We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The AJC reports Georgia's Agriculture Commissioner Tyler Harper is asking Georgia's congressional delegation to freeze a wage hike for farm workers. Harper says an increase in wages could put several farmers out of business. Now, this latest proposed wage increase by the U.S. Department of Labor would be the second raise in 2 years for guest workers from Latin America. Phil.
Well, this is a guest worker program. They're seasonal. They come here to Georgia to do the crops. They go back home, send money back home. This has been going on for years. It's a legal program. However, it's kind of like the minimum wage. If you're a business person and the minimum wage keeps going up, you got to be very careful when it's risen. You've seen in California and other states that it lays off the first people as teenagers and minorities. So we've had these raises, Lori, as you've pointed out. No, let's stabilize this. We don't want our production lines we are number one in agriculture. This could really hurt our farmers, and it could mess up this visa program.
Alicia, I do see this as a fight almost very similar to minimum wage.
Yeah, it is. I also think this is a nice bipartisan issue. Phil, you bring up some great points about the state of agriculture in our state. We had a really bad year, right? We talk about pecans or peaches, and farmers are really being affected by this negatively. At the same time, you've got workers who deserve to get wages so they can take care of themselves. These are critical workers that we need, right? These are jobs that we can't find Americans to fill, and so we need these workers to be paid I don't want to say a livable wage, but a better wage than they're already getting. We want them to be able to take care of themselves.
They got 2 raises already.
But because they're trying to bring them up to par, and that's important. Here's the piece that's missing. If Congress would stop, all of this political divisiveness and perhaps focus on passing a multi-year farming bill that addresses a number of these issues, maybe there's some federal aid there to address this, then I think we'd see better solutions here. But right now, doing nothing is hurting farmers, and it's hurting the workers just alike.
There's no cap on these visas. You can get as many visas as you want. It's the wage problem.
Well, I'm not talking about the problem with visas. I'm talking about the wages and the other issues that farmers are dealing with because of having such a bad agricultural year.
Can't have another raise.
Well, I agree with the points that have been made, but I think also Georgia has to be really careful about getting too far below the wage gap because we're competing with other states for the labor that's coming in. And I think if we sort of lag too much, we're going to run the risk that we'll have a shortage of workers on top of paying.
And then we really have a problem because we won't have food.
Okay, let's move on. Back here closer to home, another act of arson this week at the construction site of the Atlanta Police and Fire Training Facility. Atlanta's police chief is offering a $200,000 reward in these arson cases. Kathy, back to you. Mayor Dickens says the facility could be finished by the end of the year, so it's full speed ahead.
Well, again, I've got some issues with the whole thing, but I think the faster they get it done, the better it is, right? They got to get in there. The police department deserves a good place to work. I think the question of where it is has been settled, even though it's not to my liking. And I think the folks that are, engaging in criminal behavior really deserve to be caught and put away. There's protest is one thing. We've got a long, good history of it here in this state and in this city, but burning things down is not the way to get it done.
Well, Brian, the city says these criminal acts have tacked on another $20 million to the price tag, and that's money, though, that won't be picked up by taxpayers.
That's right. And look, this is also just a reflection to some degree of the fact that we've seen tremendous inflation, thank you, Joe Biden, over the last few years. I live in Brookhaven. Our city hall is being built. We had the same issue. It's much more expensive than neighboring cities because the price of inputs has gone up so much over this time. But this has got to get done. I love the statement from the police this week, is that while you were sleeping on Tuesday, our firefighters and policemen were helping homeless people get to shelters during the 15-degree weather. They were getting bad guys breaking into houses. That is the future of this city. We've got to get crime under control. It is getting better, but we have seen in the last 3 years how much chaos and how much outrage there can be in this city when crime gets out of control. We need highly trained police officers. It is worth the price tag. I'm glad taxpayers aren't picking up that extra bit.
Alicia.
Yeah, again, the efforts have to be put forth to get these people who have caused a lot of harm to people who are directly connected to this facility and those who are not. There are lots of death threats, and people have to have security and all kinds of things. And so I'm glad to see these aggressive efforts. What's also interesting to me are all the lawsuits that are also costing the city more money. There have been multiple now. They just lost another one the other day. And so I understand, again, that there are people opposed to this, and it looks like now perhaps they've exhausted all of their legal, political, and other mechanisms, and I hope that the crime will stop because people's lives are in danger.
We will leave it there, folks. Up next, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Kathy, we'll start with you because I know you have a very special birthday to announce.
I do. So my big winner today is my mom, Barbara Willard. Her birthday is today, and I just want to say happy birthday, Mom. Way to go.
Happy birthday. We know she watches.
Yep, that's right. She does watch, so that's good. And then my other winner is Spelman College and their president, Helene Gale. They secured a $100 million donation this week. That's just an awesome accomplishment from one of their board members from the Stryker family, and congrats. It's going to do a world of good for a lot of people.
That was big, very big. Phil.
Well, I've got a winner. We've been talking, of course, about the budget, the state budget, over the last couple shows. The UGA Medical School is in the budget, and I think it was, what, $50 million? I hope this goes through. We could use another one for health care. And the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, my loser, look at this hysterical headline against Georgia Power, and Army lawyer rips Georgia Power. They don't like the fact that they have a diversified portfolio. You can't rely always on green energy. You've got to have coal and nuclear and solar. And so who is this guy, and where's the balance in this paper? It's terrible.
Alicia.
So I want to honor the life of Diane Larche, who we lost last week. Miss Larche was a PR maven, active in the community, big member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and NCNW, and what a huge loss to the Atlanta community. So we want to say, give our deepest condolences to Joe Larche, her husband, and all of the family. What a huge loss to the city. My winner this week is my friend and my sister, Joyette Holmes, who was appointed to the State Board of Pardons and Paroles by Governor Kemp. Our governor has made a lot of very good appointments, I would say, on a number of benches, and Joyette is our first Black DA in Cobb County, and she's a former judge and lawyer and just tremendous citizen of Cobb County, so very proud of her. Congratulations.
Great. Brian.
You know, my loser is Biden's education secretary, who came to Georgia and said that parent choice destroys public education. No, what we're trying to do in Georgia, Mr. Secretary, is to save the kids, the low-income kids who are in failing schools that you're not fixing. They need options. They deserve it.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Have a great week. We will see you again next time.